Hello, everyone. I'm Igor Tomych, and today at Merchant Payment Ecosystem Berlin, we're discussing with the different stakeholders whatever is happening in the market. And I'm pretty pleased to introduce Rebecca Krauthamer, who is CEO and co-founder of the security company, Security Company. And thank you for joining us for the interview. Hello,
Sure.
Rebecca.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
So today we have three questions which I think were circulating around the quantum computing and the post-security, because right now most of the security is based on the complexity of the prime numbers, if I can simplify.
Yes.
And we are kind of potentially living in a moment when years from advancing the quantum computing the way that it can break the current crypto algorithm. So in the first question that I have for you, what merchants can really start migrating today, because the moment when it's going to be hacked, it's already the water past the bridge. So what we can focus today as merchants to make sure that we in compliance the moment when some security issues will come after the post-computing or quantum computing issues.
So well said. And the urgency around this is often really misunderstood because it feels like a very abstract problem. But I have a couple very concrete pieces of advice. One, anywhere data travels in a digital world and you want that data to remain private and secret, that uses encryption. That encryption is vulnerable. Two, pay attention to guidance, standards, and mandates. So, for example, PCI DSS, this already specifies and talks about quantum encryption. And third, now this is one, if you're already thinking of, if your organization is already addressing the quantum threat, here's a couple things to keep in mind that you should really do this year. So one is talk to your board. And one thing that the board doesn't always know when they're talking about the quantum threat is that the quantum threat is largely a solved problem. You just have to act on it. You do not need a quantum computer to fight a quantum computer. You just need to adopt the new algorithm standards that run on regular devices. So that's an important thing to talk to your board about. Two, most people get this part wrong, and this is very important. You'll see a lot of people talking about inventorying their encrypted communications. So discovering where encryption lives, inventorying, and then coming up with this big strategy. But this is a misconception that a lot of people get stuck in, spend a lot of time and money on. If you do one thing right this year when it comes to addressing the quantum threat, is run a free or a low-cost pilot where you actually move some system, maybe pre-production or otherwise, onto quantum safe encryption and see how it goes. This is now best practice. This is what the guidance from the SEC, Security and Exchange Commissions in the US is for the financial sector and so on. Make sure that what you're doing first and foremost is not getting stuck and spending millions of dollars on strategy, but actually piloting and understanding what the implications are for your organization.
That's true, and small steps always leading for big results. So start small. That's a good approach.
Exactly.
And if we take a look on the merchant payment stack and infrastructure, there are a lot of components like vaults, keys, storages, TLS, encryption. So what do you think merchants should focus first, and what is going to be the biggest link if we're living in post-quantum computing worlds?
Yeah, it's a great question. So again, there's a lot to think about. Anytime data goes from one point to another point, it's using encryption. And so you do have to think about the ecosystem as a whole. One thing to note is that anywhere where you're using TLS, that's a top priority. So you need to be able to migrate to the newest version of TLS that can then support PQC. That's where the biggest urgency is. Anywhere you're using digital signatures, that is also important, but that's less of a urgent risk. That's more of a, you can wait a year or two to address those. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. And the last question for today, a lot of people seeing the post-quantum war upgrade as a cost, but not an advantage. So is there any ways how we can balance out, like we put in the budgets, but we're also getting something right now, not just the protection for the future?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great question. So when you're talking to your board, how do you explain that this is not just another cost center? And so what we've seen with, I would say in particular, the financial sector and telecommunications sector, is this can very much be a differentiator. We see organizations actually offering this capability as a paid service for their infrastructure. So that's one way. We also see that a lot of customers in the financial sector, they're getting requests from their customers because there's growing awareness around this and an understanding that I, as a consumer, want the services that I use to protect my data and my customers' data from the quantum threat. So we're seeing a lot of these organizations get direct asks from their customers. So we are also beginning to see this not just as something that can provide additional revenue, but something that is a competitive differentiator for those that provide secure infrastructure.
Conscious approach when we explain it to customers and using it as a differentiator is definitely a goal of that. Thank you, Rebecca, for joining us today and sharing your experience and overview.
Thank you so
For
much.
your time.